What's up guys, Asian here with week 4 of the PTS Patch Notes version 6.0.3. So this is week 4 of the PTS, which means we have one more week in the PTS cycle before Greymoor is released. That's right, Greymoor is coming out in about 2 weeks' time. I believe it is coming out on the Tuesday rather than the Monday, so don't expect it to be up on the Monday. It will be on that Tuesday instead. So this is the 4th week, so we should expect a couple of other balance patches here, other sort of combat rebalances with this particular week. There is still one more week of the PTS, so we could still see some more rebalancing changes in the 5th week, and while it is very uncommon and has been very rare to see any major changes between the 5th week of the PTS and the live release of any DLC or chapter, it is still possible for things to change between week 5 of the PTS and the live release of Greymoor. So let's get started with this patch note. So week 3 was a little bit lackluster, to kind of put it kindly, so hopefully week 4 is going to be a little bit better. So see here includes lots of improvements and fixes for the antiquity system, along with some adjustments for vampire skills, which is good to see. We did give feedback that the vampire skills were a little bit overtuned. Spammable was definitely very powerful, and the Blood Frenzy skill, the one that gives you additional weapon and spell damage in return for a health cost, is responsible, or will be responsible, we think, for a very large increase in the skill gap if it goes live as is. Some additional crash fixes and more. So let's go ahead and get started here. So with the Greymoor for the Kind's Aegis trial, doesn't seem like they actually changed anything here in terms of difficulty. So they might already have things kind of tuned into where they want it, or they might just want to get some more feedback for this week in order to better fine-tune things in week 5, or maybe when it goes live. So remains to be seen whether Kind's Aegis is going to receive any more nerfs or buffs. Exploration itemization, nothing too much here, I believe. Let's see. Nope, not much here. Antiquities, looks like they have a lot of, just looking at the first word, a lot of fixed here. So it looks like they probably fixed a lot of issues. Fixed some typos, updated visual effects, fixed issues, added progress bars, fixed issues. Doesn't seem like these are actually changes to the items themselves, just the process of finding these antiquities. Dig sites, yep, so nothing here regarding changes to the actual antiquity items. Excavation, so again, looks like it's more just changes to the actual process of finding the antiquities. The itemization, increased the variety of basic treasures, fixed an issue, updated instances of Ancestral Elf to Ancestral High Elf, updated collectible names, fixed typo, fixed an issue. So it doesn't seem like they actually changed the items that you can equip with, that you can get from Antiquity. So things like Thrashing Stranglers, for instance, still seems to be unchanged, which is kind of bad. I've already did a video kind of explaining why I think Thrashing Stranglers is going to increase skill gap, and it is kind of very discouraging to see that they still haven't changed Thrashing Stranglers yet. I did give feedback via YouTube. Obviously, there's a lot of feedback on the forums. I made a couple of posts myself on the forums, not necessarily created new topics, but I did respond to a couple of threads here and there. I'll probably respond again to these threads just to make sure that my voice is heard. I will probably do /feedback on the PTS when I go in and do some testing, just so they know that Thrashing Stranglers, if it goes live as is going to be pretty unhealthy, I think, for the game. It's definitely going to increase the skill gap, I think, if it's not changed in week 5. Leads, mythic items, fixed an issue. Quick mythic items now feature orange glow, so this is just visual. Okay, so again, nothing changing here with Thrashing Stranglers or any of the other mythic items. So again, very discouraging to see that they still haven't taken our feedback in consideration at all. Yeah, there was a slight nerf with Thrashing Stranglers last week where it also affected your damage shield sizes, but that wasn't going to, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't change how powerful Thrashing Stranglers actually is. Scrying UI, so that's pretty much it for mythic items. Not much to really talk about here. Housing, let's see, monsters, not that much here. Quest and zones, not much. UI, okay, nothing really here to talk about here. Somerset, Voltaic Overload can no longer spread to allies in other worlds. So there was an issue where if you had the bar swap mechanic in the portal group and you accidentally bar swap, you could kill people upstairs. So it looks like this is actually a fix to that. Combat and gameplay, they fixed issues with passives, failing to recognize some enemies as werewolves, okay. The adjustments to bar swap to ensure swapping from both bars now receives the proper cooldown changes. Fixed an issue occurring in some battlegrounds. Minor timidity, fixed an issue where the debuff failed to apply from the poisons that sourced it. It's a pretty big issue there. Good thing they fixed it. Vampire, so here are the vampire changes here. So adjusted to vampire stages, so it looks like they have buffed the health regen, so it's negative 10, negative 30, negative 60, negative 100. So it looks like stage 1, stage 4 is still 10 on 100, but they downed stage 2 and stage 3 to 30, 60 from 40, 70. Flame damage taken is now 5, 8, 13, 20 from 5, 10, 15, 20. So kind of same thing here. Stage 1 and stage 4 are the same. Stage 2 and stage 3 got a, this would be a buff to flame damage, I should say nerf the flame damage taken, so you're taking a little bit less flame damage if you're stage 2 or stage 3 compared to 6.0.2. Regular ability cost is now plus 3, 5, 8, 12%, down from 5, 10, 15, 20%, so this is a nerf to the cost, so it's a buff overall, so it's not going to cost quite as much to use ability cost. Now 3% is actually not terrible. It's still gonna, you're still gonna feel it in sustain, but it should be much more manageable now. Vampire ability cost is now minus 6, 10, 16, 24, down from 10, 20, 30, 40. So this is actually a pretty big nerf here to vampire ability cost. They're talking about just around anywhere between like 50 to 60, 40%, 50 to 40% nerf to ability cost. So they're going to be a little bit more expensive now, which is reasonable considering how powerful the vampire spammable actually is. I have to go into the PTS and see just how much more the spammable now costs at stage 1 vamp, because you're probably going to want to be stage 1 for PvE content. So this should be, generally speaking, kind of hard to say, but it should be. You should see, if you are still using the vampire spammable, it should be probably just a wash, because while your spammable is going to cost more, your other abilities are going to cost less compared to 6.0.2. So probably going to be a wash overall. Blood Frenzy, this is the ability that really kind of stood out besides the Vampire Spammable. Health cost of this ability and its morphs now increases by 20% for every second they remain toggled on and stack indefinitely. Cost resets when you toggle it off. Simmering Frenzy no longer causes health cost to increase every second it is toggled on. It continues to increase the weapon and spell damage bonus every second it is toggled on by 10%. So I get what they're trying to go for here. They're basically trying to make the health cost unsustainable after a certain point. Like after 5 seconds, it depends on whether this is additive, like 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, or if it's something like 20% and then another 20% on top of that initial one, so 20 times 20 times 20 times, or just say 1.2 times 1.2 times 1.2. The former will be less, the latter will be more. I suspect it's going to be additive though. So for 5 seconds on, the cost is upped by 100%. So if it costs, let's say, 2,000 health, it'll cost 4,000 health for that 5th tick, and then it would be what? Another 20%. So it'd be 24. 4,400 on second 6, and so on and so forth. So I get where they're going for. If you don't have a self-healing ability like Swallow Soul or some other ability that basically allows you to sustain your health, then this could become detrimental. You wouldn't necessarily be able to sustain it for longer than maybe 5 or 6 seconds. The problem is, for those classes that do have the ability to self-heal themselves, to Swallow Soul, like the Magicka Nightblade, you'll be able to sustain this a little bit longer. Plus, it doesn't really change the issue at hand. Already people were toggling it on and off in trials. People have been using this in kinds ages already, and they were basically toggling it on and off depending on when the high damage phases were coming in. So if you know you're not going to be damaged very heavily, you could keep it on, and then when you can anticipate the damage coming out, you'll just toggle it off and get healed up. So I don't really see this necessarily changing how powerful Blood Frenzy is. I just see this possibly widening the skill gap even more with Blood Frenzy. In 6.0.2, basically, the idea behind Blood Frenzy is you ran either Sated Fury if you had weaker self heals, or you can run Simmering Fury, Simmering Frenzy if you were a Magicka Nightblade, for example. And then you would basically run it and you would toggle it off when you felt that the health hit was going to be too costly. So for Simmering Frenzy, it would be after, maybe you get to the highest tick for a couple of seconds. For pretty much any other class, it'd basically be when you anticipate damage coming in, you basically toggle Sated Fury off. Sated Fury gets you the heal and you're back up to full health because you basically kept it on for 10 to 15 seconds. That doesn't really change here with Blood Frenzy. It just basically means you're toggling it on and off more frequently. You're toggling it off a little bit sooner. You're toggling back on, though, once you are healed all the way back up to full. So Sated Fury, for example, you basically keep it on for 5 seconds, toggle it off, toggle it back on for 5 seconds, then toggle it off, and so on and so forth. And this toggle is off of the global cooldown currently. So you can basically use a spammable and toggle it on at the same time here. So this basically just increases the skill gap even more. So those people who are able to make use of Blood Frenzy and toggle, they're going to see a much higher increase in the DPS compared to somebody who can't. Ultimately, I don't think I'm going to recommend running Blood Frenzy, Sated Fury, in my builds, just because it is a very high skill gap. But just recognize that for those score pushers out there, those people who are going to be pushing for the Trinity achievements, those who are kind of competing for world's best scores and trials, for example, they're going to be using this ability, and I am a little bit apprehensive because I fear that a lot of more casual players or players that want to progress through veteran content are going to see these builds and they're going to run these builds and they're basically going to be carpets because they're just going to die because they don't know how to use it appropriately. And that's going to turn them off of running endgame content. So that's a yeah, I am not very enthused by the changes to Blood Frenzy. I just think this just increases the gap even more. And in general, I don't think this is the right fix. If the fix is to tone down Blood Frenzy, so enough that it can still be used, but it is not necessarily going to be the best thing to run, I don't think this is the way to do it. This just increases skill gap even more. Mesmerize, increased the length of the conus ability to 10 meters, up from 7 meters. Because it's a cone, this is actually more than just a 3-meter increase, or whatever percentage that is, just because it's a cone. To fix an issue where player-to-player vampire bites are not playing its new animation. Okay, itemizations, just 2 changes here. They fix an issue with Spawn and Mephala, and they fix an issue with the Endir's Might. So, yeah, not much here. Base game, art and animation, audio, crown, store, crown crates, event celebration, exploration and itemization. Yeah. Nothing else here. So another pretty sparse patch notes actually in terms of rebalancing. The only big thing that happened here was for Vampire, and I just kind of went through a whole 4 or 5 minute long spiel about why I think this change actually just increases skill gap even farther, rather than actually shrinking it, and it's not really a good nerf, I should say, to Blood Frenzy. It doesn't really make much sense if the goal is to tone it down or to decrease the skill gap. Yeah, and the fact that they didn't change Slashing Stranglers up here in the mythic items, another kind of worrisome thing. There's still one more week of PTS, so they might surprise me. They might come out week 5 and completely rebalance things in a good direction. They still haven't changed RO at all, so don't know if they're going to have any plans on changing RO. But yeah, this entire patch just... If you guys are still going to be playing in Greymoor and you're wanting to get into endgame PvE, the skill gap is going to be pretty wide. It's going to be wider than it is now. Their goal to shrink the skill gap, it's not happening here. If anything, they're just widening it even further here. So, if I were still to play Greymoor, I am not very enthused with the changes that have been put out so far. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about these patch notes in the description, in the comment section below. As always, description for the full patch notes. That's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.